Oh, there we go. Bite, bite. I mean, they kick each other constantly. There we go. Biting each other. They can be quite aggressive with each other. Quite a lot of harassment going on there. Well, we're definitely failing in our search for big cats today, so I think we're going to continue on a bit. See if our luck is about to turn. Okay, well, we're going to continue on our search. While we do that, let's go back to James, who's exploring Chitwa.
Now, everybody, we have come down to what I call Hosanas Haunt. I made that up for the TV show because Hosana apparently likes to live down here from time to time. I've never seen him here. But most excitingly, this is where the black-crowned night heron likes to spend his days. So I'm rather hoping to see him. Also, the green-backed heron spends a bit of time here. I don't see anything at the moment except a fail and skymende butt, a foul and slimy bath. Not so, David. Do you like my Afrikaans there? Do you know where that comes from, David? It comes from an epic poem called Raka die Aapmens, which means Raka the ape person. It was a matric set workbook, David. Yes. Anyway, let's just drive a little bit forward and see if we can't spot this night heron. Anything? Anywhere that there is to park is quite here. I'm sorry about the and signal. I have done many segments in here with no trouble before. There really doesn't seem to be much going on here at all, though, does there, David? Disappointing.
And you're back with us. Not sure what's happened up in the Mara, but Hosana has got his head up a little bit. There was some movement coming from the drainage line just sort of to our right-hand side. He had his head up, was looking there for a little bit, but he is just now just panting again. Whatever was moving there definitely sparks his interest for the shortest of moments. We're also joined here by one of the other vehicles from Cheetah Plains. They've come in to chat with us as well, and we've had a little chat with Andrew there, one of the guides, and he assures us that the kill up in the tree was actually a young kudu. So it looks like the wildebeest, Mr. VM, was correct, but without too much left. Andrew said there was big ears, and it was the fur that gave it away, but I don't see any ears. There's definitely some fur, but the coloration makes it very difficult, folks. It was definitely not a kudu, definitely not a wildebeest or an impala. I believe Tristan has got that wrong before, so VM has told me that we should actually give him a little bit of a hard time for that. I hope he's watching somewhere out there. I do know he's got the afternoon off and is probably sitting by the pool watching the broadcast as we speak. I'm a little bit jealous of that, but just because of the coolness of the pool. But here we sit with the young prince. Where else in the world would we want to be? There's a comment there, I'm not sure who it's from, but do cats ever eat vegetation like dogs do? I have seen cats eat a little bit of grass, but purely to invoke a regurgitation. Cats will, if you've ever eaten grass before, it actually causes you to vomit, and cats will do it when they've got too much of a fur ball. After they've been grooming themselves, they lick themselves. They lick and lick and lick and clean and groom themselves. I believe that question was from William. And then they get lots of fur inside, and also the fur that they eat when they kill. They get a lot of fur inside of their stomach, and it's quite difficult for them to. They don't have a finger like some people, like we have, to stick down our throat and to induce vomiting. So they'll take in a bit of green grass, and it will cause them to vomit. I've seen that on quite a number of occasions, and it's all got to do with fur getting it out of the body. They're not able to digest the fur. I believe hyenas can actually ingest or digest fur and bone, but leopards don't ingest it. You'll often find some fur in the dung. You'll often find fur in the dung, but you'll never find you'll find blood and fur, but often not bone fragments in leopard dung. In dung, you'll find fur as well, and hyena dung very, very white because of the bones and the fur that they ingest. But often with lions, because they feed in quite such a strong sort of social unit, they feed quite aggressively. You'll quite often find them throwing up bone and fur, and it's quite an interesting thing to find. Sina asks the question, is it common for leopards to hang their prey up a tree? And in Africa, that is a very, very yes. Very, very positive yes. Because of the competition with hyenas and lions here, you'll find that the leopards need to hang their prey up there, otherwise they would lose it quite quickly. An animal like that, I mentioned earlier, leopards can feed maybe 16 kilograms, 34, 35 pounds in a sitting. They don't need to do that because they can put the prey up in the tree. If they don't put it up in the tree, hyenas will pick up on that smell or smell that from a distance. They'll come and find the leopard quite early on in the evening, and they'll steal it from them. Lions as well. I'm not saying lions aren't able to climb trees, but because leopards are quite small and agile, they're able to get up to the very tall, weakest of branches in the tree that lions struggle to climb up to because their weight is more than double that of the leopard. So definitely they do tree their prey. An interesting note, in India, a friend of mine who works there, the leopards there, a subspecies of this leopard, do not tree their prey purely because they don't have the competition that these leopards have here. So some leopards aren't able to tree their food purely because they probably kill something that's too big for them. And often I found female leopards or younger leopards underneath a tree with a large male impala or something like that they haven't been able to get up the tree. Quite often they'll feed on it for a few hours or even a day, and then once it loses a bit of that volume or that weight, they'll then try get it up the tree. But years ago, when I worked in the Kruger Park for Singita, there was a leopard there called the Shingwenyana male, and he's just probably one of the most hardcore male leopards I've ever seen. He used to kill female waterbuck and put them in the tree, and that for me was just unbelievable. A waterbuck in the tree, and we found it more than once. Whether he took the animal up there directly or whether he fed on a bit before taking it up, it's hard to say, because each time we found it, the animal was partly consumed up the tree. But a waterbuck weighing in, I've got to have a look at the stats here, but I'm sure it's probably close to 400 pounds, probably about 200 kilograms, maybe a bit less than that. How he got that up the tree, that's double his weight, more than double his weight. And the leopard, pound for pound, the strongest. If you had the size of a lion's body, it would be the strongest cat known to man. These things are unbelievable climbers. Francis is interested to know whether there's been any eagles coming in to take advantage of the kill, and I've never seen an eagle actually climb into the tree with the kill. You'll often find tawny eagles or battaliers hanging around hoping for some scraps to maybe fall. I've never seen them physically go into the tree. It's possible that one of the other guys out there, maybe James knows, maybe he's seen that before. To be honest, my experience with leopards and treeing is quite limited. being my first time working in the Sabi Sands, this is the place of the leopards. This is where they do all their work. Definitely vultures and eagles will come on the scene. The beauty about treeing from leopards is that it actually hides the prey animal from vultures. Vultures aren't able to see the animal there, and it's only really the keenest of eyes, from the tawny eagle or the best eyes of them all, the Battalier eagle, that's able to find these carcasses. But the secret nature of the leopard, camouflaged as he is, he likes to camouflage his food as well, eliminates the competition. It's why they are so successful. It's why they can survive absolutely anywhere, even close to Pretoria still, in the northern parts of South Africa, around Johannesburg, north of Johannesburg. You still find leopards coming in and out of the city there, taking dogs, taking domestic animals from where they live in the suburbs. They are still living in the mountains, still living around the city. I know in India, leopards are coming in and out of the city there. They're kind of cohabiting with people because of their ability to survive, because of their secret nature. They are very, very adaptable. So from cats with spots to large, tallest animal in the world with spots, we're going up to the Masai Mara, where it is cooler than here, and Taylor has got a giraffe.
We do, and Shane, this very, very young giraffe, is being plagued by flies at the moment. Oh no, look at them all gathering on your head. Shake your head around, little giraffe. It is so small that we saw the adult, and then we saw this one, and all we could see was its head running above the grass. The rest of its body was completely covered. And so hopefully we'll get to see that again. I don't know why there's so many flies gathering on this little one's forehead. I wonder if it's got a little cut or something that is encouraging them to go there. Obviously we know they go around the nose and the eyes to get all the moisture. Yes, wipe your face on Mom. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. And just going in for a little suckle. And all the oxpeckers. And there's some juvenile oxpeckers there too. So isn't that so fitting? That we've got mother giraffe and giraffe calf. Then we've got mother oxpeckers with her little ones also learning. And that is a spectacular view and a scene that you get to see very often in the Mara, one that I've never seen anywhere else, is of course with the Olololo escarpment behind them. Because in Zambia, in the Lower Zambezi National Park, there were never any giraffe. So I never got to see this, even though there was an escarpment down that way. But what a very, very beautiful scene. Now that little one's very, very thirsty, as you can see. Wait, Mom, don't be mean. Just stopping to have a quick drink. It's quite young. This little one, I reckon it's almost a month old, probably a few weeks old, this young giraffe. It wasn't too wobbly on its feet. It was able to run fairly quickly. And just from looking at its size, it's grown quite a bit. There we go, Mom. Good girl. Stand still for that youngster. Now, wouldn't it be amazing to see giraffe twins? Again, not a particularly common thing, but it can happen. And a close inspection of a tail while it's there too. No mane growing on it, so we're quite lucky to see that giraffe yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, with that interesting, all the hair that it had produced on its tail. It was quite funny. And I'm impressed with this little one, that it's already happy with the oxpeckers. Those are two juvenile oxpeckers that you can see. They don't have any red or yellow on them, trying to avoid that mom's swatting tail. But normally these young animals get a bit annoyed, and they haven't quite adapted to having little birds bouncing around on them. Sinek, you're wondering, when did the giraffe give birth in the Mara? There's no particular season with giraffe. They've got a fairly long gestation period, between roughly about 15 months or so. Maybe just slightly less than that. So I've seen giraffe giving birth all year round. Again, though, you might find that during the two rainy seasons, between the short rains and the big rains, will be a peak in births, obviously because the vegetation is going to be favorable. It's going to be in the best condition that it will be for the entire year, which means that the adults will be able to produce enough milk for their youngsters. But can you believe that escarpment is just disappearing in the mist, though? Crazy with whatever's going on. Oh, hello, Tula Ann, who is one of our young viewers, only 5 years old. You said that you love giraffe. Well, I'm so happy that we got to show you one. It is always very nice to see. They're really, really lovely creatures. We've been lucky. We've been seeing so many of them lately. They are stunning. And I'm glad that the mom and this little one stuck around so we could show you them to land. So this was all for you. There we go, getting a little bit annoyed now. Right, but we're going to keep searching for all sorts of wonderful things. Maybe we'll find that black cuckoo. We're in the area. The lions are still fast asleep. However, James is not sleeping on the job. He's at Chitwa Dam, and maybe in this heat he'll take a swim.
Hello everybody again. I hope that our signal lasts now. We're sitting at Sutra Waterhole, a cool breeze blowing off the surface, which is very nice for us indeed. And we're looking, of course, at some hippopotami. Some of them were having a little bit of a fight earlier on. And now there seems to be complete and absolute calm. I believe Taylor, mentioned what during her link? Oh, that I might take a swim. I think that would be a very silly idea. Swimming in here would probably result in death. And while I do not claim to be contributing enormously to the betterment of humanity, I still don't feel that my demise would necessarily be the best thing to showcase on live internet streaming. I've no doubt there would be a number of people who would be quite pleased with it, Taylor seemingly among them. But I think I'm going to hold off on that for a little while, if it's okay with you. Now, in the camp there, David, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I know those are very nice. But across the way there, underneath the scraggly gardenia bush in front of a chalet, are two Nyala, having a fight. They're just behind the bush there. They're now in the shade. And they're having a fight. And I have never seen a more wonderful fight than I have between two Nyala. Those are now eating, not fighting anymore at all. Oh. I was just saying to David when we got here, sometimes you're just a bit off form, and I feel like today that is just my lot today. Getting everything wrong, losing signal. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering about crocodiles. This is one of the reasons that I will not swim in this dam. There are known to be, most of the time, 2 crocodiles in here. They don't eat those Egyptian geese, but there are known to be 2 crocodiles in this dam. I haven't seen any of them here today. They sometimes lurk on the side, sometimes they swim. But you just never know, and it's one of the greatest or most golden rules in all of Africa. And that is that no matter how well you think you know a waterhole, unless you can see beneath the surface, wherever you happen to be, you do not get into the water, because crocodiles move enormous distances. So there could, for huge periods, be no crocodiles here. And then one day you'll take a swim and you'll find yourself missing a limb at the end of your swim, which of course is a very unfortunate way to end up your swim. And there are many, many stories of people ending up like that, thinking that water was free of crocodiles and then ending up in some distress. Then we also have a bushbuck across the way there. David, you seen that little kind of bay there? Yeah, a little bit left of that. No, that's a Nyala, David. Yes, there he is. Now, a really nice way to tell the difference between a bushbuck and a Nyala. That is the bushbuck. I don't mean the birds. Those are Egyptian geese. The bushbuck's the antelope in the middle of your picture. And the difference, of course, is obvious when you see them together, but when you don't see them together, they can look quite similar, and that's because they are very closely related to each other. The bushbuck has got no stripes on it. That's the first thing to notice. The second, of course, is that he's much smaller than adult male Nyala. So the bushbuck, the Nyala, and the Kudu, which have overlapping niches here in southern Africa, all have slightly different diets. This chap is having a fight with the mud. It's very odd. There are a number of animals that do this, and I don't know the reason for it. I've seen wildebeest doing it, I've seen nyala doing it, and now we've seen bushbuck. He is in superb condition. I don't know if you noticed there as he turned around, but his fur is actually shining. He looks like he's been groomed by a very skillful groom. Now, this is something we've discussed hugely, and I think that we will do eventually. And many of you are saying that you think we should probably get Ronald, or some version of Ronald, to be able to float. And yes, I think that would be a wonderful idea. A boat like Ronald would be fantastic. And certainly, it would be fascinating to see what the hippos do. Obviously, the risks are much greater when you put something like this in the water, and the complications of keeping him dry are that much more difficult, but it would be great. I would really like to put one in the Mara River and see how far down we could get him to float. Maybe in a sort of hard perspex shell with a gimbal inside that sort of kept the camera steady. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? I don't want to be the person who has to fish it in and out, though. But an amphibious Ronald would be fantastic. All right, I think we're going to leave the waterhole now and head around into the clearings to the south here, and we'll see what we can find that aside. And we might stop just further along just to see if there aren't a few birds that side. And then I'll probably do one more foray past here in order to see if we couldn't find some elephants coming down. Now, I believe Steve is pulling a Tristan and a James. He is sitting very still next to a cat that is sitting very still.
Yes, we are pulling a Tristan and a James, sitting very still, but it would be nice to have had some shade like those two gentlemen, I believe, had when they were sitting in this position. And I was quite interested to hear James' idea of getting old Ronald to float, and I was thinking of an appropriate name would be Ronald Duck. So I'm laughing at my own joke there. So folks, we are back with the little prince. He is lying in the grass now, and I thought I might go back to a story I was talking about last night of my first ever leopard encounter. It was with a male leopard, a similar sort of situation to this. He had a kill, except it was a bit of a drainage line. And the male leopard was probably about 200 pounds, about 90 kilograms or so. A very, very big male leopard, quite renowned in the area. And I had unwittingly stumbled upon his kill when I climbed out of the vehicle, and I was probably about as close as we are now to him, except I got out of the car, which was the wrong thing to do. And the thoughts are, you could be walking along here and the kill could have fallen out of the tree. Guys coming to try and relocate on this position. The kill might have fallen down. You think you're in the right area. You're looking for the right weeping wattle. There's one there, there's a few more over there, and you're not quite sure. So what do? We climb out the car and we have a little look, and we need to be aware of what we're looking for. See, took me quite a few years to figure out. I think it was day 2, a conservation student in the Kruger Park when that happened to me. So those subtleties were not yet developed inside of my psyche, or I didn't have that sixth sense, as you call it. And if you can imagine, this cat is lying flat on the ground. The one that I approached, it was in a drainage line. The temperatures were quite cool. I think he was feeding. And the kill had been in the tree when the guys had left him, and I got there and the kill had obviously fallen down, so I didn't find one in the tree, and then he came at me out of the long grass. Very similar sort of conditions with the grass color now, quite thick, lots of vegetation, and a leopard can move at an extremely fast charging speed. Now if you had to work that out, a leopard charging speed at about 80 to 90 kilometers an hour. Now folks, that's 50 to 56 miles an hour that this animal can go over a very short period. That's 22 to 24 meters. It's quite similar to yards, or you can translate it to 73 or 79 feet per second. Now that is incredibly fast. and moving at a speed like that, it is not just running, it is making this enormous growl that's coming from the depths of its belly, as if a demon itself is rising out of the drainage line, and it's somehow managed to hit the floor and smack the ground as it moves. It is an unbelievable sound and an unbelievable feeling that one experiences. Obviously, Hosana is not behaving like that right now, but that can happen quite quickly with a wild leopard if you do not pay attention to the rules, if you do not do what you're supposed to do. These animals, I mean, we are right upon him, folks. We drove into probably about 10 or 20 meters, probably about 30, 40 yards from him, and then he was just there. So most people, if you're walking, how would you see this animal lying there? He would notice you there, he'd be flat down, he'd be giving you these signals of don't come in any closer, and if you're not an experienced person and you're not aware of what you're doing, then it's very, very difficult for you to pick up on or to see those signs. But we are going to go back to Taylor, who has one of my favorite kinds of animals. I think she has a bird.
Yes, Steve, we're starting to realize that you are quite the keen ornithologist. We've got a white-browed cuckoo. I got quite excited. I saw one fly into the shrubs, and I thought, black cuckoo. I thought, could we have another sighting of it? But it wasn't. It was the beautiful white-browed scrub robin, and this seems to be a hot spot for cuckoos. It's perfect habitat for them. Nice tall grass, and then of course these shrubs that we've been talking about all afternoon, that the elephants and the giraffe and the black rhino are munching on at the moment. And with cuckoos, you don't often see them bouncing around in big trees and the tops of them. They typically feed down on the ground, and if they do feel as though they need to get away, they will dive into these small shrubs to sort of fly and land into them, just like it's just done now, disappearing into the bushes. Oh, very nice. It's a pity none of them were close enough for us to hear their call. Unfortunately, a bit of the wind today is kind of muffling a lot of the sound. Okay, so what else are we gonna find here? It's a bit quiet. Sadly, no whispers on any black rhino just yet. I haven't seen any, that's for sure. Otherwise, I would have showed. Which way am I turning the volume? There were some warthogs around. Fly, birds, fly. Lots of little birds. Who are we going to see next? I'll look for another white-browed cuckoo because I did hear a whole bunch of them calling. So I'm sure there's some more that are around. Oh, there's some baby Coqui Franklins. There you go. In front of the road. Just a little bit. That's the adults. And then there we go. There's a little one. There were a couple of them. I can hear them chirping in the grass. You might be able to hear it. No, it might be a bit too soft and again too far away from me. But we are seeing lots and lots of the little chicks at the moment. Now, very precious. Look at that beautiful coloration. Just helping it blend into the grass. And you can clearly see on this track. Those aren't the birds that we are wanting to hear. But you can see it opening its mouth. But I can't even hear that little chick calling now for mom. And mom is just up ahead. Mom's not very far away. It'll figure out that she's just on the other side of that grassy track. No, you're going the wrong way. Maybe by instruction. There goes the adult. Now, Tom, you're wondering how long before that little one will fledge. Not particularly long. Obviously, birds that are born out here on the ground, so from the geese to the franklins, the spurfowls, they all are very well developed, so they're on the run from the get-go. And obviously the adults will show them where there's food. If they find, say, a patch of ants or something like that, or seeds, they'll direct them to that. But they start learning. We were watching that already with the ground crane chicks yesterday, where the adults were, yes, passing some insects, but you'd still see them pecking down on the grass. Whether they were finding anything or not, probably not, but just practicing. So it won't be very long. I reckon maybe 2 months, 3 months with that adults, and then it'll probably go maybe even a little bit less than that. They're pretty self-sufficient, and they grow so quickly, those birds. They can't stay small for too long. But I do stand under correction because I don't know exactly how long it is before they fledge. What I can do is I can check on my bird app. Let's see if they have that information. See if we can find it out right now. What were we looking at? Coqui Franklin. I'm just going to quickly find Franklin. Oh, no, I can't do that. I have to go the long way around. Come on now. I will show it to you in a minute. I just want to try and find it. I'm trying to search. Juvenile. No, we don't want to know about that. We want to know breeding, food and foraging. No. Eggs, incubation, development and care. There we go. So, well, they become adult. Oh my goodness, after a month, they already almost have all their, well, they've got their mature feathers, so those colors that we're looking at. So, there we go, sub-adult, between 45 and 105 days. That's pretty good going. So there we go. I was right in saying that probably around 3 months, 2 to 3 months or so, you might find that they're self-sufficient and on their own. They're pretty good. There they go. I want to see the baby guinea fowl again though. The guinea fowl chicks we saw the other day quite briefly were very cute. They were lovely. Those little apps on your phone are so handy. And quite nice to have, especially if you don't have books at hand for IDing birds and things like that. You've got the calls, got a bit of information, they're really great. But I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I was just saying how I couldn't find a rhino, but the safari expert down there somewhere named Brent has managed to get you one.
Well, here we go. We decided, well, if we can't find any lions, let's go look for some rhinoceri. And not one, but 3 black rhinos with their heads down in the grass. Now, it often looks like black rhino in the Mara are grazing. However, in fact, they're eating small little bushes, little balanites trees, little woolly caper bushes that are growing. Now, they really like baby bushes. It is one of their favorite things to munch upon. There was a little argy-bargy a bit earlier, trying to figure out exactly what the dynamic is here. You probably find it's a adult female and one of her youngest calf, and then a sub-adult. It's not uncommon for the sub-adults to stay with mom for a bit longer, and it looks like they've been having a right old time in the mud today. Now, we're very, very fortunate with the amount of black rhino we see in this top section of the triangle. I've seen some interesting black rhino behavior since I've been in the Mara. I think one of the best sighting I've had of black rhino was definitely of the male on the other side of the river munching upon a sausage from the sausage tree. That was quite entertaining to watch. I didn't quite hear that. I think Sinak was asking, why are one species of rhino called hook-lipped and the other square-lipped? Well, the black rhino has a very distinct hook lip that it uses for browsing. And what is the purpose of the hook lip? Well, it serves a very important purpose when you're feeding on trees and things like that. It hooks around the little branches and grabs them off and then breaks them, and so that is why it has that hooked lip, and that is the black rhino, is the hooked lip rhinoceros. The white rhinoceros is also called the wide-mouthed rhino, and they use their lips to pluck grass. There we go, we can see there's a little one. Hello, little one, with the head up. A little bit too far to see the hook lip very clearly, but they'll use that to pluck branches and leaves off trees, whereas the wide mouth will use their lips to grab grasses. Cenac, I said, I thought the sausage tree fruit was poisonous. How can rhinos eat it? Well, it all depends on different things. Might be poisonous for certain species and not to others. Baboons also frequently eat sausage tree fruit, so it all depends on the species. They obviously have the capabilities within their digestive system to break down the toxins that are in the sausage tree fruit into harmless, digestible pieces of food. Okay. Well, they're not moving too much in there. Look like they're going to keep fiddling around this area. I'm still hoping for a lion. I mean, I went out searching for lions today, and I still have not had any luck. So who knows, maybe one of the big males is lumbering around somewhere close by and is about to wake up after his snooze. Hello, a PT Watcher. PT Watcher, you are indeed correct. That rhino numbers are indeed on the rise. Now, a lot of the figures for rhinos are from southern Africa, but in Kenya, black rhino are on the rise as well. There are between 35 and 45 rhino in the Mara system. Now, one must remember that a lot of those rhino actually also go into the Serengeti, so they move between the Mara and the Serengeti. It is the same ecosystem, of course, but the Serengeti is in Tanzania. But yes, so there's been massive improvement in the anti-poaching and things like that in South Africa, and that is what's caused the increase in rhino numbers in southern Africa at the moment. Okay, well, we're going to meander on, see what else is out there, and let's go find out what Master Henry is up to. Well, apparently you're still with us. There was a gremlin on the other side of to the south of us, a few thousand kilometers. It's a very strange sunset this evening because of the haze. Look at that. So it would normally be quite a spectacular sunset coming through, but with this haze that's around, it's quite diluted. Nevertheless, quite stunning. Magical. Okay, well, it sounds like Commander Bond is back on the other side of Africa. Let's go see what little critter he's found.
Now, as I was saying, our feed froze, but here we are. This sighting you will ever have, I believe, of a scrub hare. Broad daylight. It's a nocturnal animal, and he's just so relaxed. Look at him eating grass. His little white tail sticking up, his bunny-like nose just sort of twisting in the wind. I'm just going to turn off this broadcast because it's making a horrible noise. Is that not wonderful? Look. Smelling the air. And going for the leaves. Now, a really nice example here of them showing you which parts of the plant are nutritious. He's just sniffing for danger, but you can see only eating the leaves, leaving the stalks and things which are difficult to eat out. And also interesting with the what did I want? Leveret? No, leveret's the baby. What is the family called? I've forgotten. Anyway, with rabbits and hares, being herbivores, he's eating grass, okay, in exactly the same way as a zebra or a wildebeest will. But now, it's interesting. Sorry, I'm just being slightly distracted by the Game Drive radio. What's interesting here is that he doesn't have a hindgut fermentation system. There are two of them. Doesn't have a hindgut fermentation system like a zebra does. Coming back this way, they're chasing each other across the road. Here they come, straight past us. One right in the road. Nor are they ruminants, but they coprophage. In other words, they eat their own dung. So the first time it comes through, it comes out as a little sort of pale, slimy pellet, and then the next time it comes out, it's a much drier, redigested pellet. And that coprophagy, or dung eating, allows them to redigest the structural material in the plant and derive some kind of nutrition from it. So there are all sorts of strategies that the animals have out here for digesting almost indigestible food. It's why they can eat grass, for example, and we cannot. Now, what was interesting about that, apart from the fact that that rabbit nearly jumped into my lap, is you can see immediately that this is not a rabbit, it's a hare. And you can see that from how long the back legs are and how long the front legs are. They're both much longer. And it is clearly a running, not a hopping animal. See how long those front legs are? Look at the colour in the eyes. Those eyes are the most beautiful orange colour. Orange gold. Orange gold, I suppose, could also be described as copper. Copper colour. That is just stunning. I wager this is the best scrub hare sighting you'll ever have. Sinek, you're wondering about other hares in Africa, and if I could discuss some differences between this and other hares in Africa. I don't know of any others, but I have the most wonderful mammal app on my phone, so I'll just look for you quickly if you'd like, if you'll bear with me. Hare. Well, in southern Africa there are only two hares. There's the Cape hare and the scrub hare. Now, the Cape hare is actually interestingly found in the Cape in Namibia, also up into parts of Mozambique and northern South Africa, and all the way around the coast of Africa from Wowee. This is actually just quite interesting. I'm going to put the map up for you. That's the Cape hare. Can you see that at all, David? There we go. That's the Cape hare. That's its distribution all over different parts of Africa. Let's just do this. That's the scrub hare's distribution. So quite different. So those are the only two hares that we get here in southern Africa, and they've just got a distribution of the whole of Africa because they are found in the whole of Africa. And I think you'll probably find that they're very similar. I suggest to you, but I don't want everybody to go. Let me just check one other one here. Hare, no, not hate. Hare. So African savanna hare, scrub hare, and Cape hare. All part of the same genus, so very closely related to each other. And the African savanna hare has no map on it. Anyway, I don't know where that one is. Native to diverse regions, Algeria, Botswana, Burundi, Chad. Well, if those of you are feeling adventurous, you can go to Guinea-Bissau and seek out the African savanna hare. I can think of other reasons to travel. He's still on the road. Let me get my head out of the way. There we are. Isn't he cool? He loves that tuft of grass. Just magnificent. Look at the veins in his ears. It's like an elephant. Yes. Very surprising. Now, he looks so surprised because we are not going to look at him any longer. We are going to go across to the sleeping leopard in the shade.
Very confusing that you have hares active in the day. I find that very strange. But Hosana is up And he's down again. He has been sitting up and looking at us for the longest time. We've just been gazing into his beautiful golden eyes for a very long time now, and he got up and had a scratch behind the ear, and he's now moved a few feet away and lying down in exactly the same sort of shade he's been in the entire time. So he's panting, and I'm quite perplexed. I wonder if James had any answers for why the hares were active and mobile this time of day. That's not something I've seen. I mean, I've spooked hares out of their little warrens or hidden areas just before, but that's just to get a fright. I've never seen them running around in the daytime. I think that's quite unique. I'm not sure if it's just something that happens here in the Sabi Sands, but it's not something I've seen before. And the beautiful prince is looking off into the distance. The flies are still bothering him. They have been bothering him for some time. He hasn't managed to catch one yet, but you can see the ears go flat there. You see there was this little sign of annoyance there. It's all about body language with these animals, and you can see a change in behavior with a leopard quite quickly. We were talking before, when you were with me last, about how the signs that you need to look for. And when it comes to leopards, the first sign you need to look for is you need to be able to hear, because you will hear a leopard long before you see it if it is not happy with you. And then if you get past the hearing stage and you actually see the leopard, ears that are flat and a head that is low is another very, very big sign, and a flicking tail. You can see his tail's flicking a bit now, but that's just a natural sort of flick that he's doing as he's moving, maybe try and flick the flies away. But a flicking from side to side, or a thrashing, a very deliberate movement, is something that is also very, very important to understand if you ever are approaching these animals from a distance or on foot. Most of the leopards in the Sabi Sands are very, very relaxed. I've spent a lot of time in the past habituating leopards that had never seen vehicles before, leopards that just the first sign of a vehicle and they would just take off into the bushes. And the objective with habituating, if any of you are familiar with it or have not heard of before, let me try and just give you some information. The idea is not to influence the animal, to follow the animal to the point where it realizes that you are not influencing it. It seems like quite a converse sort of point, that, but if you can follow an animal and let it relax. So what I mean is that if you see a leopard and it shows you any sign of something and you switch off the vehicle and it slowly relaxes, then you can switch the vehicle on again, and if it shows any signs of distress, you switch the vehicle. You can do that repeatedly. It can take weeks, it can take months, it can take quite a bit of time, but if you do it deliberately and you do it without influence, crossing that so-called line and the animal to run away, eventually the animal is relaxed. It realizes this big hunk of metal is not actually there to cause it any harm. It can't eat it. It's not chasing, it's not hurting, it's not stealing its food. Eventually, over time, it realizes, okay, I'm just going to sit here and do my thing. So I was very fortunate to have done a bit of that back in the day, but I didn't see the fruits of it. By the time I left Singita, the leopards were starting to become relaxed. And what happened there, I think 3 months after I left, one of the leopards that we got quite relaxed, I think her name was called the Shinkilingan female, named after a fever tree. Just after I left, she happened to have a cub, and then the whole process went from habituation to habituated. So once you've got an adult habituated, like what has happened in the Sabi Sands, 50, maybe even 60 years, the leopards have gotten used to vehicles here. It's why we have such an abundance of them. It's why we have leopards, as some people would say, on tap. Lots of leopards to view here. It's because their mother, their grandmother, was habituated. So they were born, like you're seeing Tandi now with her cub. Whenever the vehicles see her, the cub doesn't seem too worried. For example, if any of you have kids out there, if you're walking down the street and your child is holding your hand and mum sees something in front of her, or an individual who's going to do harm, mother's going to react in some way. It might be a squeeze of the hand, it might be a body posture, it might be a sound. Whatever that might be, the child is going to react to that. Leopards, lions are all exactly the same. They basically look at mum, and mum is not reacting. Basically, if Hosana here was a female and the cub was nearby, the posture that Hosana is giving us is one of complete non-interest. So the cub would look at mom, in example, example here being Hosana, and see that there's nothing to worry about, and will slowly relax and will very, very quickly become habituated, versus an adult leopard that you have to physically move around and follow for quite a period of time until they eventually become used to the vehicle. So it is a process, and it does take some time, it does take a lot of patience, but once you have done this, it is beautiful. But please, folks, never forget that a habituated leopard is not a tame animal. Animals are not tame, they are not zoo. They are completely wild, and if I had to climb out of the vehicle now, things would change completely, and maybe because I'm on the opposite side of the vehicle, there wouldn't be too much of a response because he wouldn't really see me. But if I climbed out and took a step towards him, the animal would suddenly go from seeing this box that has gotten very used to seeing this bipedal man, this two-legged upright standing human that for a very long time has competed with them. They are genetically encoded to have a fear for the human race, to have a fear for the hunter-gatherer that for a very long time competed with them with stick and spear. So the temperatures are still quite warm, but Hosana is enjoying it in the shade. There's a slight breeze that is picking up now coming in from the east, which is really, really pleasant. We've been looking quite hard at that carcass in the tree, and if we can have another look at it, you'll notice that there's practically nothing left. It's merely skin, and there's a couple little bits of meat, but I wouldn't say there's much left on there. Not much. There's some bones. You could probably make a nice stew out of the bones and maybe a nice pelt out of the fur, but when it comes to meat, I think he's done eating, and when it cools down, he'll probably move away from this area to go and have a drink. But folks, we are sitting here in the sun. We're going to stay with Hosana for a little while longer, going to see what he gets up to, but we're going to go over to Mrs. McCurdy, who is bumbling up in the Mara.
So to the right of that rock is some waterbuck, and we've been talking a lot about waterbuck lately, and I said that there are a few of them that look like they are bearing babies. Well, there's a waterbuck calf just standing just behind her, and this is typical for her to be out on her own. Normally we see waterbuck in big herds, but when they do give birth, like a lot of the antelope species, they'll go and do so in a secluded spot and not out in the open. So a forest makes for the perfect spot, except I know what lurks in that forest. I know that there are lions, I know that there are leopards, and I know that there's a hyena den in there. So I don't know if it would be a real good idea to keep hanging about here. Jamie and I went on a hike this morning, in fact, and we were just a bit higher up on this valley, climbing some rocks, watching some birds, and we watched quite a few hyena move around on the rocks too. She's very jumpy, she's very nervous this afternoon. You can see the grass is blowing around quite a bit, so we know that it's super, super windy. And of course, with a very, very young calf like that at her side, probably only a few days old, because she still looks like she's got quite a big belly, and that calf would be susceptible to many, many different predators out here. They'll take it on quite easily. And she doesn't know what's lurking around in that grass, so she's going to be extra careful. And I'm surprised she doesn't go down to a spot where it's a bit more sheltered, although that little one is so camouflaged in the grass, as you can see. The best thing to do maybe would be to sit down and let mom run away, although it will try and keep up. They stand up fairly quickly within an hour, which is amazing. They can be moving around, obviously the little bit of wobbly legs, but after a day or two, they would have practiced with them just enough, and then they can bound around. Not as quick as mom though, but they'll get there eventually. Right, very cool to see that. Now I gotta try and reverse now. No power, come on Mila. Mila's the car, by the way. They all have names. Whee! It's gonna be a disaster. I'll have to just put it into 4x4. If I want to do anything, I have to just engage 4x4, which is a little bit silly. Shouldn't be doing that. Drive up slowly. Okay, what else have we got? Not much. No one's on the escarpment today. Anyways, right. I'm going to send you back down to South Africa, where James and Steve seem to be having a lot of luck with cats. Steve with Hosana, and now James has got some lions.
Just spotted it. Now we have sitting here with the Styx Pride, everybody. The Styx Pride that you saw this morning. I'm very excited to see them. I haven't seen the Pride together like this for a long, long time. David, was I in the way? Oh, thank goodness. So what we have here, 3 lionesses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubs, I think, is this the whole lot, or there's some smaller ones still? It's so long since I've seen them or heard about them that I can't tell. I know that there are 3 adults in this pride. I know that there are 2 oldish cubs that must be now, saw them just before I went to the Mara, I think. So call it, yeah, they must be almost a year old now. Maybe sort of 10 months, 8 or 9 months or so. And then there's some others of all ages that were born while I was away. So if anybody could help me out, that would be marvellous. Hashtag Sorry Live. Otherwise use the chat stream on YouTube. Would be wonderful. Styx Pride. How many? Etc. In fact, I think I might even have that information. Let's just keep watching them. I know this is not the best picture of lions in the world, but it is lions after all. I don't think I have the correct app, unfortunately. What a dreadful, dreadful pity. I'll have to sort that out. Anyway, there it is. Let's see if it'll open. Are we still plugged in? Anybody still talking to us? Hello? Hello, everybody? Here we go. 3 adult females, 2 sub-adults born November 2016. Oh, so they're over a year. It's a long time since I saw them. 4 cubs born May 2017. 4 cubs born July 2017. There we go. So those 8 cubs I haven't yet to meet. And then there are 2 sub-adults that were born in November 2016. Good. The lionesses were born in 2005 and 2007. 2 of them in 2005, so that puts them at 12. That's old. And one of them now at 10, at least. So if this is quite interesting. So we have a pride here with 1, 2, 3, 4. What did we say it was? It was 10 youngsters. All of them, though, on the cusp of, or the oldest ones on the cusp of becoming adults. If, for example, there was to be a pride takeover now, a coalition takeover. Before I carry on, you're wondering what that thing in the road is. It's a blanket. It fell off one of the cars that is in here. It's Andrew from Cheetah Plains. He's going to retrieve it on his way out, or leave it here for the lions, depending on how close he can get to it. Anyway, what's interesting here is that if, let's say, there was a coalition takeover, the Birmingham boys ousted from here. I think it's highly unlikely. But imagine that the Birmingham boys were ousted for some reason, and another coalition came in here and took out these youngsters. It's highly unlikely that these old lionesses would be able to give birth again and then raise 2 independent new lionesses, and that would be the end of a pride. And that's quite an unusual thing, because it's highly unlikely, or it's very seldom, that a whole pride would be wiped out like that. And I've seen it with something called what was it called again? It was called the Oppie Pride, I think. No, the Lamula Pride at Angama. And the Lamula Pride at one stage consisted of 1 lioness. But unless a territory is completely vacated, that lioness can actually hold on to a full territory, give birth, and sort of rejuvenate the pride. But this pride found itself in a slightly precarious position with a 10-year-old, 2 12-year-olds, and no sub-adult females, really. I mean, we can call the ones born in November 2016. Oh, sorry, everybody. We've got a small technical glitch. We're going to have to go to the Safari Live logo, which will be very exciting, and then we'll come back here.
He hasn't moved at all, folks. He is still lying down. He actually just stood up and had a little ablution. We must apologize for any technical issues we might be experiencing on the other side there. But we're still here. We're still live with Hosana, the little prince, who has not moved much from having what we think was a little break. He is doing what he's doing. We are still here waiting for your questions and comments, folks. Anything of interest you'd like to talk about this afternoon? The sun, we've repositioned ourselves, so we're feeling a little bit more comfortable. There's another fly there to bother him. We're in the shade, which is lovely now. The shade of the tree, same tree as him. A commensalistic symbiotic relationship. If any of you out there are familiar with symbiotic relationships, when two organisms interact, and in this case we are benefiting, as so is Hosana, from the shade of the tree, of the wattle tree, weeping wattle tree, and the tree is not being negatively affected. And in the same sentence, Hosana used the tree for hoisting of the animal that he fed on, and no negative effects apart from maybe a few claw marks and maybe a new little arrangement, almost like his own little butcher's Christmas tree with a pelt. Except there's only one decoration. We believe, after chatting with Andrew earlier, that the carcass was actually somewhere else earlier today or yesterday, and he moved it to a little bit more accessible position. So it's possibly why James and Tristan weren't able to fully identify what it was. It was a little bit mixed up in the foliage there. And as we know, this is a beautiful toilet paper tree. Lots of little leaves, lots of fine leaves, and quite difficult to see through them. Where we've positioned ourselves now, we can't really even see the carcass anymore. And there they are, very, very nice frilly trees. Remember, folks, don't confuse this with the sickle bush, which has got the very sharp spines. Well, this is the one that you could use as a toilet paper. I mentioned it on my walk the other day. The poor man's toilet paper comes in quite handy if you are in need of the loo, with a view out here in the wilderness, which often happens, without leaving behind some messy toilet paper. Kathy asks if I've ever seen a leopard catch a fly. No, I have not. I've seen them swat at many and bite at many, but never catch one. And I've seen lions catch not a fly, but a quail that happened to be very close by. It seems to just swat at it and then put it in the mouth and chewed it. But a dog I used to have years ago, I've seen catch many flies. Jack Russells like to run around. A friend of mine's got Jack Russells, and they run around catching flies and then chew them up and then just drop them on the floor. They are very, very funny little animals, Jack Russells, full of energy, and they do not like flies or rats, I believe. Very, very good for instance, if you have a rat problem in your house, you want to get rats out of the building, Jack Russells are apparently the go-to. There's a lovely breeze coming from behind us now. Can feel it coming in from the east. It's picked up a little bit. You can see it in the movement of the trees. Really is one of the godsends out here. These hot African afternoons, cool breeze coming in. Definitely what relieves the heat and just the humidity that sits around us. When the vegetation's this green after some rainfall, there's this thick moisture of humidity that sits in the air, and without any movement of air, it just sits there, and you basically basically just soak in it. Hosana's got the right idea. He's keeping low to the ground, nice and cool there on the floor in the grass. The grass is probably even moist, probably even a little bit still damp from yesterday. The sun would have risen kind of behind us, and or sort of a little bit to, behind us to the right, and he's kind of been in shade where he is now, nice and green area. Would have been in the shade most of the day. But I believe this morning there's quite a lot more of that meat on that carcass, which Andrew, the guide before, indicated was a kudu, a young kudu. And there's not much left, as I said in the previous segment. So I think the technical issues have been sorted out with Mr. Henry, and we're going to go back to where he has got the big Panthera, the Panthera Leo.
We have got the big Panthera, everybody, and we've just deployed Ronald. He's quite a distance from them. Stood up to come and have a look. Now, if you are a new viewer, we're just trying an experiment here. We've got a little robot that... just hissing at him. A little robot. He looks like a little car, basically. And we're trying to experiment with different ways of viewing nature. And while it can look a little bit like what we're attempting to do here is induce some sort of interaction between us and the cats, that's not the case. They are reacting to him now. We're hoping that they habituate him to his, the same they have habituated to the vehicles, for example. And so far they've shown curiosity and interest. The other cat that we've done this with is Hosana. They've showed no aggression at all. I mean, that little hiss, I suppose, from that cub could be considered slightly aggressive, perhaps. The lionesses have shown absolutely no whatsoever. Lions like this, again, are ideal experiment with, because they no threat. Even if they get a fright away, or they'll swat Ronald, one of the two, and neither of which is going to harm them in the long term. So while our ultimate aims to observe with as little as possible interaction with, there are obviously we have to exactly where our lines are and where our boundaries are, and what we can and what we do. And I know there was some kickback today, I shall not tell a lie, on Twitter after we did this with Hosana this morning, and he came and he did pretty much what those lion cubs have done. He lay down for a while next to Ronald, he gave a sniff, and then he almost chewed one of the aerials, and then he backed off and went off and sat in the shade. So, some of you felt that perhaps we were crossing there, and mostly, however, even if this experiment side, these animals won't have to you again. Your question was, what do I think would happen if we dressed Ronald as a lion? Well, I think the point is that we'd have to put a fairly substantial engine on him if we were to dress him up as a fully sized lion, and Brent did those experiments, he was part of those experiments where they showed lions pictures of hyenas and antelope, etc. And I seem to remember that they showed, yes, they did. Hyenas were much better at discerning the pictures, but the lions didn't. They went for cardboard cutouts of kudu and waterbuck and that sort of thing. So I suspect that they would do the same here. I suspect they would react really badly to the invasion from another lion. If we dress it as a lion colour, it'd be quite interesting. But as a lion, I think they'd attack it. And so that we want. If we were to do him as something like a tortoise, I think they would definitely try, and it was a convincing disguise, I think they'd try and break it open as they would with any normal tortoise. But I think if we dressed him up as a bush in traditional camouflage, well, then we might have slightly better results. And maybe that's the thing to do, to dress him up as a bush, or a rock even. A rock is probably even better. And see if we can't get even less reaction than we've had here. You can see now half of them have lost interest, and I'm not going to move him, I'm just going to leave him sitting there, because what I'm going to do is go back to the pride and lie down for him. Because you can imagine this view, and there was a buffalo, and they were all feeding on the buffalo, and we just drive Ron up to sort of 2 meters of them. They would just go about their business and ignore him completely. It would be wonderful. And maybe as a rock, disguised as a rock, that would give him the best chance. Well, you see, Trista, this is my logic as well, although I'll tell you why there might be a flaw in both of our logics, Trista, that you think is less invasive to have the road than it is to have a vehicle. Tell you why that might not be the case. I mean, I follow your logic completely. I've thought about it myself. You know, the vehicle makes a big noise. It's strongly of diesel and all the other fluids that go into it. And in the case of a Land Rover, probably brings a fairly substantial cloud of noxious gas with it. But this Rover is small, and because of that, I mean, it's unusual, so they don't have a relationship with it. They understand it. But this thing is small enough for them to think, well, is this something to eat? I think. Except that's reacting to it. They're actually reacting to it in the same way that they would to the vehicle on first sighting it, except it would have been the other way. So if you drive up to lions for the first time, they've never seen a car before, they'll back off to a certain sort of distance and then stop and wait, and eventually they just get used to it. Now, because this thing is smaller, it doesn't make nearly as much noise, they've come closer to him and they've just relaxed. And I think that if we did this 5 or 6 times or 10 times or 20 times or whatever it is, they would eventually just ignore him completely. You can see now that little cub getting up, losing interest and moving away. This is exactly what I wanted to happen. Now, the First Lady, you say, do I think animals are curious as human beings? No, I don't. I think that if animals showed a pretty to curiosity that anything remotely resembled human beings, and there was selective pressure for them to show that kind of curiosity, I think what you'd find is that they'd have put other lions on the moon rather than us putting our own species on the moon. I think that they are curious to the point of want to know what there is to eat. So most of their play behavior, most of their play behavior, we know, is designed to help them build muscles and neurological connections that will help them as adults as they grow, and also helps them in their hunting behavior. And their curiosity with moving objects as little as young animals, I think, is probably selected for them under the same pressure. So they will tend towards curiosity, towards moving creatures, simply because it could possibly be something for them to eat. Does that make sense? So I don't think they're curious for the sake of curiosity. I think a house cat chases a ball of wool because it looks like a mouse that's running. and they practice those skills. But human beings are curious for the sake of curiosity. Alrighty, apparently we are not having a technical difficulty at all. What we're doing is just switching the feeds from the Mara to the Djuma. This is going to take, I don't know how long, probably about a minute, so we'll see you shortly.
You're back with us again, folks. Nothing much has really changed here. Apologies again for the stream issues that we're experiencing. Hosana has not done anything really since you've been back. He's lifted his head just now as you've come back with us, but he's still panting heavily, looking into the distance. There's not much to be seen. He's looking straight at the tree, and there's quite low vegetation around, so his interests are basically just on panting and digesting. That is what he's doing. Have any of you ever had a huge Christmas dinner? What do you do after that? You just want to digest, especially if it's hot. Those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, have you ever had a huge Christmas dinner in the summertime? It is something to behold. We used to go to the beach every single year for our Christmas, and yeah, lots of food, lots of eating, and then lots of sleeping in the heat. So I'm quite used to it. This is what we do out here. Summertime, we definitely do enjoy the heat, but it'd be nice to have a nice bit of cooling off in the shade. Movement to the back here was actually a really, really good idea. Hosana's enjoying the shade. We're enjoying the shade. Any comments or questions, folks? We're dying to communicate with you out there. I don't know if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, can hear the birds. We had some just before. They've moved off. We had some birds flying above us. Now we've got the call of a white-browed scrub robin. Oh, look at that, William. That's a fantastic shot. Some sort of dragonfly. I'm trying to get a good look. Moves his body. Looks almost like, very hard to say unless he turns a little bit. I know that Tristan has been doing a lot of work on his dragonflies. I wonder if anyone can take a screenshot of that and tweet it through for him, see if he can ID it there. I don't have a dragonfly book on me at the moment, and I'm by no means an expert. But we've actually had quite a lot of dragonfly activity around here. It's possible that there are small little midges or small little insects that have been coming off of the carcass, because there's been a huge abundance of dragonflies flying in and around. And as we all know, or if we didn't know, dragonflies are very predatory, and they're actually hunting. This time of year, the males and females are actively hunting and looking for mates. Right, once they're well fed, they'll find a mate and then a suitable water source. Folks, he is up. He is moving a little bit, but I'm not sure where he's going. There's no shade there, my boy. No shade at all. He is repositioning in even less shade than he had before. So that is quite perplexing, but maybe he's looking for a little bit more of a comfortable bed. That was a great shot for him of the dragonfly. This time of year, yes, we've got lots of insects. It's very wet, very green. The dragonflies would be hunting and looking for mates, and then they deposit their packages, their eggs into the water, and then they get the larvae will hatch in the water. And it's a very interesting life cycle where dragonflies have adults outside the water and juveniles inside the water. We call it hemi-metabolic B, which means they are separated in space. They're not separated. You get a lot of grasshoppers, which is also hemi-metabolic. It's quite a tongue twister, and they actually lay their eggs in the grass. The adults and the nymphs will basically utilize the same habitat, it's the same niche, whereas dragonflies eliminate that competition by laying their eggs in the water, and then their larvae or their nymphs in the water are also highly predatory in the water. Very, very good indicators of stream health and stream condition. And back when I was doing my studies, we were doing what we called SAS, which was South African River Health Assessment, and you're looking at certain organisms in the water. Because if you're looking at water health, you can't just take a water sample, because Farmer Brown might be dumping his pollutants in the water at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that water flushes downstream. By the time you take your sample, it is not actually relevant. But if you take an analysis of the insects that are in the water, and dragonfly larvae and damselfly larvae are very good indicators of a healthy river system. If you start finding fly larvae and maggot larvae, then you know that there's something going wrong in the environment. Paula, that is a question I have no idea the answer to. How often do dragonflies mate? This time of year, what I'm thinking is that the dragonflies mate and they deposit the egg package in the water, and then that it's done. And then a new generation generates and comes forward. But I actually do not know the answer to that. I apologize. There we go. VM, you've got him again. VM is the dragonfly spotter. Now, I do not know the answer to that. I know that when they do mate, the male and female attach to each other, and as they fly down to the water, they fly down together, and as she deposits the eggs, he is fertilizing them at the exact same time, so he's ensuring that those eggs are fertilized by him. But look at that, the easy way to identify dragonflies versus damselflies. A dragonfly sits with his wings out like that, quite flat, whereas a damselfly folds them up behind it on the back, and also the damselflies are very more dainty. As a damsel in distress, more dainty, a little easy to remember, a little bit smaller, but there are a wide variety of species out there, especially in South Africa. There are plenty of species, and this time of year it would be good to do a little document on them. I know Tristan is very busy with that, so I'm very looking forward to picking his brain on all the dragonfly information he's coming with. Beautiful, beautiful. So the difference between the nymph and the adult, obviously the nymph is in the water, but the legs and the body parts are completely different. The nymph is almost like a jet-propelled boat underneath the water. It actually takes the water in through its mouth and sort of propels it out behind it and moves through the water like an outboard motor or an inboard motor. And as it's coming towards metamorphosis, it kind of crawls up onto a stick, kind of like what you're seeing now, and then it kind of goes through like a pupa stage, and that kind of breaks open, and out comes this beautiful creature with the wings. It's quite something to see, and you can quite often see the remains of the larvae, the casing of the larvae sitting on sticks just at the water's edge from where the adults have emerged. So I'm pretty sure that during the rainy season you get a number of breeding times, but I do not know the answer to your question, Debbie. Andy is a fisherman, and he always regards dragonfly landing on the rod as a good luck. Indeed, I do believe that is a good luck charm. We're having good luck right here. We have a dragonfly sitting on a little stick next to us. We are not fishing. We are watching a leopard, but indeed, I think that is something that if you believe you're going to get good luck, I think it is a very, very good omen. Dragonflies are remarkable little creatures, and as I said before, very good indicators of a good ecosystem. And if you are fishing next to a river with dragonflies, the fish you're catching, you know, are eating and surviving in a healthy system. So that's a good sign to look out for. So you could think of them as an indicator of what we call ecosystem health. Just like frogs, because the dragonfly has got an amphibious lifestyle where the juvenile lives in the water and the adult comes out, just like frogs, the tadpole lives in the water and the adult comes out. So if you start looking at rivers, you're not finding frogs, you're not finding dragonflies, you have a serious problem. Those are the first two species you're going to see disappearing or declining if there's pollution. And when I talk about pollution, it's not just chemicals, it's chemicals from industry, it's chemicals and pollutions from agriculture, human waste, bad sewage systems. These are things that are a problem with the growing human population that we have at the moment. So back over to Hosana over there. He is flat. He is not doing much at all. And we have got Mr. Henry with a buffer species that does very well for feeding.
Well, a buffer species? I don't think I know what a buffer species is, actually, but I mean, I'll take Stephen's word for it. A buffer species, we've got a guinea fowl, helmeted guinea fowl. Now, we left the Styx Pride. Ronald's video failed. It's back now, but it did fail. And so we picked him up again. and we put him back on the car. As you can see, his video is now working. Show us how his video is working, Kirsten. Can we see? There we are. Yeah. Let me set temperature signal. Anyway, here we find ourselves, and we're going to go to Buffelshoek Dam and see if we can find some elephants in the last half an hour of our drive. Helmeted guinea fowl almost certainly will take off at a speed much greater than Ronald can possibly achieve, and that of course we know because they are almost as fast as Wade van Niekerk at the 400 metres. We used to use the example of Michael Johnson, no longer. South African Wade van Niekerk is the world record holder, in case you were wondering. So the Styx Pride, very, very confiding. We thought we did our nice experiment with them. They were great. They were fantastic. We'll try it again with them at a later stage. Be very nice to try it next, I think, if they're on a kill. And we managed to back Ronald all the way away without them reacting. One of them stood up and sort of sniffed about, and then I stopped Ronald, and the cat lay down, just reversed. It was fine. So I think it was a very useful little experiment to do. There are other vehicles converging there now, and we don't want to do that sort of thing when there are other people around. I mean, imagine getting home from your safari to show your to show your friends your pictures of the amazing animals you saw, and there was this Rover sitting in the Pride of Lions. It would look almost otherworldly, I feel. Anyway, we're on our way to Buffelshoek Dam. This area does tend to be a little quiet. It has been very quiet throughout my time here at Djuma. But then we get to the dam and hopefully there will be a huge amount of activity. Elephants washing, hippopotamus playing, wild dogs chasing Nyala into the dam, crocodiles breaching, catfish in their jaws. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Now the evening is starting to fall, which means the temperature is starting to drop a little bit. Oh, you're all discussing the temperature on Ronald. Ronald has got a defect. That temperature thing is not accurate. It's not, in fact, 57.6 degrees Celsius here. I promise you I'd be much less happy than I am now if it was. There's a greater blue-eared glossy starling there. Ooh, look at that colour. He's on the road in front of us now. Hello. Just catching some insects. I was just saying it's starting to cool down. Perhaps the birds will come out. Ants, I suspect, this time round. Right, my goodness. Hosana is up. Apparently very exciting stuff. Some movement. Let's go back across there. Maybe he's looking towards Thandi.
So from birds of a feather, we have a cat that has decided to sit up, and we're not sure what's going on here, folks. He is looking very, 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 very deliberately into the bushes there. He's looking directly towards the bushes below where his meat is hanging, and I don't know what he was seeing, but it's, you know, you've got to pay attention to the body positioning of a cat. And I think whatever it was that piqued his interest has disappeared. We thought we were getting a bit excited there. He was showing some interest in something, and now he's back in the shade. Paula's asking if there's any sign of Thandi and her cub this afternoon. We didn't go anywhere near the potential den site. Didn't have any tracks on the road. I think James had her and the cub this morning, so no, there's been no word of her or no sign of her. But we're not far. See that's what it is, folks. That's what he saw. There's a Natal spurfowl there that's just busy, just ferreting around in the vegetation. And you know, from guinea fowls to franklins and spur fowls, these are definitely prey items that leopards would gladly take. They're definitely quick enough to catch them, And they are a very important food source in the dry months when maybe other prey animals have possibly declined in an area. And also these are very important animals that we listen to. If you can hear in the background there, I wonder if you can hear that crested francolin calling. Those are the calls that we look for, we listen for when we are trying to find cats. And quite often these cats are found by these francolin and spurfowl. And these spurfowl, you can tell that they're not francolin or the crested francolin by the orange legs and the orange beak. Hosana's not paying any more attention to them. That's why we're not looking at him. So we're just looking at the bird's view there. But they were doing a little bit of dust bathing before. Very, very orange beak. Do you see that? Beautiful colorations. The crested francolin would have a black beak and a white stripe on the face. AB is commenting, these are the bush chickens. These are a little bit smaller than the chickens. Definitely the guinea fowls that you had just now with James would be the bushveld chickens, but they serve a very similar role in this environment. They feed on seeds. They distribute a lot of seeds through their dung. They do a lot of scratching in the ground, and after rain the ground here gets very hard. I know a lot of us have been talking about it when we're tracking. Just to update you, the Hosana is flat on the ground. It's only about 5 meters, probably about what's that, about 10 yards or so. Yeah, 5 to 10 yards between him and the birds. So he's not very interested in the birds at all at the moment. He can't hear them anymore, or maybe the effort to catch them is more is more than the reward. It's a very small meal. He is full, but they can't help themselves sometimes, and if the bird does come any closer, he might raise his head. But I know what we often talk about, and I've heard it often enough on the screen, is that the ground is very hard, and after the rain the ground is very hard. And these areas, it's very important for birds, not just birds, but hooved animals that come along and they break up the soil, the crust. You need to break the crust up for seeds to land on the ground. If a seed lands on a very hard, crusty ground, it's not going to germinate. It's just going to be eaten, or it's going to desiccate, and it's not going to grow in the soil. The roots are not going to be able to penetrate the very, very hard soil. So the scratching that the francolins and the guinea fowls do are very, very important for the ecosystem. Yes, they eat lots of seeds, but they do little disturbance patches all over the place. They're dust bathing, they're scratching for feeding, they're looking for seeds, they're looking for insects. This time of year they'll be feeding a lot of insects. They'll be walking around elephant dung and rhino middens, scratching through there for any seeds left over or any insects that are growing in there. What have you got there? Oh, there we go. We have a bird crossing the road. There he is. See the pecking. They're picking up whatever they can off the ground, but also very vigilant. You see how they peck and then the head comes up. Nancy asked the question, how much do birds depend on smell? And the answer there is, in most of the books I've read, they reckon that the nasal potential, or the smelling potential of birds, is very, very small. Eyesight is a huge proponent, and hearing is a huge proponent. They've done studies, and they believe that certain birds, like vultures, can actually smell meat. That's what enables them to find certain carcasses under trees. But I think the nasal capacity, or the breathing, or the smelling, not the breathing, the smelling capacity in most birds is highly, highly reduced, and increases their ability to hear and to obviously to see. Obviously the eagles, the large eagles that we get, eyesight is paramount for them, and owls, huge amounts of hearing that they require. At night time they're not really seeing. In pitch blackness an owl can't see, but that sort of that conical face that they have amplifies the sound towards the different levels of ear, and definitely sight and hearing in these birds is very, very important. But smell, but we don't know if birds can smell. We don't know how well they can smell, but just through what they do and how they behave, it's definitely sight and hearing that are their most important sensory signals or signs that they use. So back over to this beautiful prince. The francolins, the spurfowls, were not enough to rouse him. We thought we were going to get some action there. He was showing signs of interest. He got up, he moved about 2 meters. His ears were forward, he was focused. And then, as I spoke before about the drivers, his drive to sleep was greater than his drive to eat. Paula would like to know how far a leopard can see, and it's a very difficult question because, you know, the bush is quite thick. I mean, I know for a fact that cheetah can see a human being from about 300-400 meters away in an open area with no problem. They can identify a person walking from that distance. I know that because we habituated cheetah years ago in the Kruger Park that saw a person from about 400 meters and ran away hell for leather in the opposite direction. As I spoke earlier, that he perceived the upright standing human and was very afraid. But leopards, I reckon, have got a vision probably better than us. The distance probably equal in distance to us, but because they are black and white vision, they don't pick up the detail as well as we do. They don't pick up the depth, they pick up shape. They're mainly going for shape. They rely a lot on their hearing. The hearing is what keys them towards things, and then when they pick up certain shapes walking through the environment, that's probably what is the biggest cue for them. There was an experiment at a reserve I was working at a couple of years ago. A professor was out from a university in the States, I forget which one, but they were trying to ascertain the search image that animals have, and this experiment was with lions, and they had these cut-out cardboard shapes of impala. There was no color to it. It was just a cut-out impala shape that you could quite easily draw against the wall, for example, that two-dimensional impala, and then it dragged it behind the vehicle. And it was quite incredible that it was not a real animal, but the lions actually chased this thing. It was a little bit more of a playful chase than a real chase, but there was definitely an interest and intrigue in the animal's behavior towards this shape. So we know that lions and leopards don't see color through their ability to see at night. You need black and white vision. It amplifies the ability to see in very poor light and to see at night, so they don't see color. We know that depth perception is important to see color or to see shapes, and we see depth. That's why we can spot a kudu and a nyala in the bushes. But if a nyala or a kudu is standing very, very still in thick vegetation, a leopard or a lion, as we believe, probably will not see it. That's how evolution has worked. That's how the animal has managed to get to where it is now. If they were visible and the strategy didn't work, they would have abandoned it a long time ago, and everything would just be white or something like that standing out in the environment. But they all need to blend in. Even the leopard, if you look at the coloration of him, that coloration is designed to blend him in directly. And in the winter months, when the conditions change here slightly and the vegetation gets lower, the coloration that he has, if you take a photo of him lying like that in about 3-4 months and you change it to black and white filter, you probably wouldn't really see the shape of the animal at all. It'll just blend away into that background. So that's what it's all about. That's what the visual is there for. And black and white vision, definitely a big difference in how animals operate. And you can tell which animals are night vision. Those predators, all predators that I know of are nocturnal vision. They need to see at night. They need to see black and white. We know the difference in eyes. There's been a lot of scientific dissections of animals and their eyes, and we know rod cells and cone cells. And if you're not familiar with this term before, rod cells are just these long rods that are situated in the eye, and we as humans have got rod cells. They are pretty much on the outside of our eye, not in the middle. The middle is cone cells in the shape of a cone, and the cone is designed to pick up color. It's almost like a pyramid. It sort of filters the light through. We get different degrees of color, and we're able to see it. We see depth, whereas rod cells, we only see black and white. So on the outside of our eyes, any of you out there, if you haven't done this before, do an experiment for yourself before you go to bed. Switch off all the lights and walk through your house and see if you can find the light switch by looking directly at it. I guarantee you will have to walk sideways or look sideways to find whatever it is you're looking for, and you will actually be able to see what you're looking for because of those rod cells on the outside of your eye. You should try that. It works quite well. It's quite similar to walking outside at night. We can't see directly in front of us. We're completely night blind in front, but your peripheral vision picks up some movement, some light, brings in more light into to our vision. But with no rod cells in the middle of our eye, we don't see very well at night. Hence we are in houses or we're in caves, and that's where we spend our time. So we're going to stay here, folks, with Hosana. Maybe another Franklin or Spurfowl will come past and give him another bit of energy. But we're going to go over to Mr. Henry, who I believe is in the process of trying to find something.
Yes, that is a permanent state of being out here, trying to find something. I am trying to find something. We went to Buffelshoek Dam, and I don't think there was a bird there. There was just the sort of gently rippling surface of the water, and nothing else. So we've now decided to come towards Vuyatela Dam to see if perhaps we'll have some elephant action there. David suggested it, so if there aren't any elephants there, it is entirely David's fault. Isn't it, David? Yes. You'll take the credit too. No, I will take the credit. I'm the presenter, and therefore my ego is very large. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. If I do, I apologize. Oh, that's a dreadful feeling. Let me look at the sun. There it comes. I don't know if any of you knew that trick. David, did you know that trick? You know that trick. If you feel like you need to sneeze, you look at the sun, and then you will sneeze. Yes. It is a wonderful way of getting a sneeze out, as I've just demonstrated. Gorgeous evening falling slowly on the Lowveld of South Africa. For those of you who are new viewers, Lowveld, of course, means lowlands. We're in the lowlands of South Africa, roughly 400 meters above sea level, which is roughly 1,300 feet above sea level. There is a kudu there. Joy and rapture unforeseen. Jennifer, you're wondering about Mvula, who we saw the other day. And again, for those of you who are perhaps new, Mvula, an old male leopard, pushing his 13th birthday. Yes, Jennifer, there was an update this morning. He was all the way to the west, almost at Elephant Plains. So he's still wandering around in his dotage, catching the odd thing to eat, and staying out of the way of the territorial males. He won't want to get in the way of Mr. Anderson, who lives around that area. But I'm sure he won't. He's got very adept at staying out of the way. I'd love to show you the kudu on the dam wall. Unfortunately, they are now behind the sun, so we will prevail upon them to go down towards the dam, and then we'll show you the great plethora of animals here, including the animals I've just kind of fallen in love with once again. And I'll tell you why shortly, as soon as I can get my face out of the sun. There we go. Now, we have got a wondrous array of animal life here as I answer Scarlett's question of whether or not I prefer the afternoon sunset or sunrise drive. I think I prefer the sunrise, but I do love the sunset almost as much. So Scarlett, I'd say it's probably pretty equal. Now, we've got kudu, we have got impala, we have got nyala. Kudu the big ones, impala the small ones, nyala the medium ones that have just disappeared to the left. And then we also have got some baboons. Can you see the baboons, David? There was one. Go, yeah, sort of middly of your picture now. There's a baboon. Now, I've just read a book which I told some of you about the other day, called A Primate's Memoir, which was lent to me by Stefan Winterboer. He said, you'll enjoy this book. And normally I'm a bit suspicious when people say I'm going to enjoy a book, because 9 times out of 10 I don't. Anyway, I opened this thing, and from the first sentence I was hooked. And it's about this tremendously, I suppose we could call him a polymath almost, multidisciplinary American. He was at the time a primatologist. He's now a neuroendocrinologist or something like that at Stanford. And he writes about his experiences in Kenya with the olive baboons there. Over the course of about 20 years he's been going back year after year to research them. And the way he tells the story of these baboons just made me feel guilty for every nasty feeling or nasty thought I've had about them, because around a camp they're horrific. But of course the only reason they're horrific around a camp is because we have a camp, and that's not their fault at all. They pillage and steal. But in the wild, they're just wonderful. So human in so many respects. And what he was studying, of course, well, not of course, but the object of his study was to find out if lower-ranking animals, and therefore animals that had a greater deal of stress hormone, were more susceptible to diseases than others. And they were. His hypothesis was proved correct. And so lower-ranking members of a baboon troop, who consequently live more stressful lives, have a vastly increased amount of stress hormone in their bodies, and because of that they get a bit sicker than the others. Isn't that interesting? If you want to know about baboon behavior in an amusing and non-kind of teacherish or a lecture-like textbook way, you can do no better than that book, A Primate's Memoir, and the chap's name is Robert Sapolsky. And he's from Brooklyn, and so he's got that wonderful dry New York sense of humour. It's just brilliant. Kathy, you say, why don't the big cats hunt here at the dam? They do. They absolutely do. You will find that lions and leopards and hyenas will congregate or certainly concentrate on waterholes like this. But you must remember that if they came and sat here every single day, the antelope would learn very quickly. And so they've got to vary their strategy. And you'll find the drier it is, remember we're in the wet season now, the drier it is, the more likely they are to be around the only sources of water. But there's lots of water around at the moment. And so you'll probably find the cats close-ish to water. But as soon as animals start to congregate around diminishing water sources, so you'll find the predators start to spend more time congregating around the water themselves. I hope that answers your question. Well, Sinak, you say, have I ever seen baboons harassing antelope? Well, you're watching it now. That young male baboon, looks like a young male, is chasing little impala. And it's quite an amusing little game until the baboons catch a baby impala. They do often catch them. Well, they don't often catch them. They can catch them from time to time, especially when they're just born. And they will eat them. They eat meat quite happily, do the baboons. And so, yeah, I mean, I have seen them from time to time harassing young antelope. The adults don't really have much sort of trouble from them. There they are now chasing each other. And it was so fascinating to read about the behavior of these baboons because, we don't spend a lot of time with them here, so we don't necessarily, we don't understand the hierarchies in these baboons. We don't understand how different they look from each other because we don't spend any time around them. But they do look different, and they have very individual features. And their hierarchy is so interesting because it's stratified, both male and female have sort of stratified hierarchies. Much like with human beings, they inherit the status of their parents. So a low-ranking female's offspring will have low rank. The males, the lower ranking they are, but like hyenas actually, the lower ranking they are, the more likely they are to disperse to other troops. In fact, that's the most likely fate of a male baboon. He will disperse when he hits adulthood to another troop. The females stay in the troop for the rest of their lives, or for their whole lives. And there's this constant jostle amongst the big prime adults for alpha position. And what alpha position gives you is the one full day during the prime estrus swelling, or the biggest chance, which gives you, of course, the biggest chance of siring offspring. Look at those two to the left, Dave, there on the log. There's one now, there we are. And the older males that are past their prime, they live in a sort of gentle dotage, gentle retirement within the troop. Sometimes genuine friendships between male and female baboons, where there's no consortship at all, where there's no attempt by the male to mate with her. They just kind of like each other, and they're the ones that hang out together during the day or forage together, groom each other. And those are just youngsters having a bit of a playtime. Fascinating stuff. There's something else of vital importance I wanted to say about these baboons. Oh yes, and during this playtime, of course, if you're a low-ranking male, a little bit like being a low-ranking male on the playground, you're much more likely to be beaten up by your pals than you are if you're a high-ranking male. And that comes from which mother you were born to, and of course it also helps if you're a little bit bigger than some of the others. But if you have status and the confidence that comes with status, you find that you get beaten up far less in a troop like this, which is so similar to a human playground, it's amazing. And then you do get the exceptions. You get the outcasts who eventually rise to the top and become alphas. Sometimes they also form coalitions, which I also found fascinating. And normally, in fact, almost immediately as the alpha male is deposed, that coalition will break up and they'll start fighting with each other in the same way that they were doing with the big alpha male. So I've decided I like baboons again, and I enjoy being around them. Alright everyone, that's going to be it from this end of the Sunset Safari. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to hand you over to Steve for the last part of the drive with the magnificent, small, but getting big Chief Hosana.
Thank you, James, and I believe you've had a wonderful afternoon with some amazing scrub hare sightings, and we've been chatting about baboons and low-ranking males, and here we are back with a beautiful spotted cat, Hosana, the little prince. He was up for a moment, folks. There's Kudu coming back. We had Kudus coming in the scene, and he had spotted them, but they moved away. And now they seem to be coming back, but he doesn't seem to have any idea that they're there. The wind is actually in their favor. It's blowing from him towards them. But it was, there you can see the ears. Some young juveniles. These are perfect sort of candidates for a leopard of Hosana's size. Just see the one-year-old horns on those kudus there. They came through a moment ago and then they disappeared, as kudus do. Exactly what I was talking about before with the colorations. Even with our depth perception and our colorability, we lost them. And VM was agreeing with me that as a filmmaker they do a lot of black and white film to get the focus, but they couldn't do it out in the bush because you can't see the animal. So that backs up the theory I was talking about with the lens or the rods and the cone cells, and the kudus are slowly making their way towards sort of in a north direction. I'm not sure if they're coming directly here, but as you can see, the little prince has absolutely no idea that only probably about 100 yards away we've got a few kudu slowly but surely meandering in his direction. Whether they know that their offspring is up in the tree, maybe they're coming to pay respects, thinking that it is time that the leopard has moved off and they will come and pay their homage. That does not happen in kudu. It does happen in elephant though, and the little prince still hasn't moved. Is he hungry? I don't think so. Well, he's up now. What has he seen? What is going on in his mind? It's definitely a lot cooler now, folks. You can tell by the shadows. He is completely out from the shade now, and there's no sun on him now. So it's definitely that nice, cool time of the day, and we've been very fortunate. We've spent the afternoon here with him. We've watched his fat belly, and we've got some amazing visual of him, and this has been amazing stuff for myself and VM. And I'd like to thank all the viewers at home for your tweets and for your questions and for taking part in this live live game safari, and thanks to Mr. James Henry and to FC. And we will be with you tomorrow morning. If my leg is feeling 100%, I'll be on a walk. But until then, folks, have a beautiful evening. Until tomorrow. Good night.